I don't know. Something's going on. There we go. All right. Let's head over to Twitter real quick. PHP Ugly. And do some retweets. Oh, yeah. The stream is live. Awesome.
Is that? I feel like that's not right.
What's that?
The three of us, should not be live.
No, probably not. It's probably a bad idea. All right. All right. All right. I'm going to kick it off if you guys are cool with that.
Of course we are.
Look, we already got people in here. Jesse is already here, ready to rock and roll. Rock and roll, Jesse! Let's do this. Oh, I meant to try to figure out why we get double on the stream. Every time somebody chats at us, it shows up twice. One from Restream and one from whatever service it's on. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. All right, I'm going to do this real quick. What is it? Evening? Evening, yeah. Good evening, everybody. My friends, my family, my co-workers, my coding community. You're listening to PHP Ugly. This is episode 185, day 24 of the quarantine. I am your host, Eric Van Johnson, and with me, by my sides, in a very virtual sense, not physically anywhere within 6 feet of me, are my good friends, John Congdon.
Hello. Actually, according to our screen, we're like inches from each other, which is kind of weird.
I feel like I can just about touch you. Oh. And my other good friend, Thomas Rideout.
Hello.
How are we? I'm excited. I tell you what, I'm not going to lie. I'm excited. I've been coding this week. I've been bringing up new services. We're getting back into the NoSQL world. Been syncing databases. I've had a good week, and I'm just ecstatic to talk about it. But you know me, I will ramble. I will take on the show. So I will step back and see what everybody else is up to. Thomas, let's start with you.
You're not gonna like it.
Uh-oh. Why not?
Because it's the same old stupid rant that I've been giving for like a month now.
What's that?
I started my Laravel 7.4 upgrade.
You can't possibly still be doing that.
Well, no, I just started. I was waiting for a 7-day break. I got a 7-day break. Laravel 4.0 went out, and there were 7 days where it did not get updated.
7.4, so I assume you're...
Yeah, so I officially started the migration, got it almost completely done, except for one package that I needed to clone into my own repo and fake and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so went back to work the next day, and 7.5 had been released.
Yep. Every morning, you should just have a cron job that says Composer Upgrade. And just get on with your life, man.
It feels like this is a scheme to make money off of Laravel Shift.
I don't think Shift doesn't do point release upgrades.
Well, he doesn't get anything out of Laravel Shift anyway.
Yeah.
It's killing me. It is just killing me. And I cannot tell you with any certainty what the version is going to be tomorrow.
Just learn to embrace it, baby. Just, as long as it doesn't go to 8, you're fine. Just assume you're fine at this point. Assume that Taylor is adhering.
Now,
you would think that.
I would.
I'm going to hijack this for just a second since we're on December. We had an outage that I was called out of bed early this morning for because we did an npm upgrade of the Twilio client, which was a bug, a patch version, not even a minor release, and everything broke. And I was like,
There you go. There you have it. It's not a Laravel issue. It's just a open source maintainer issue.
I think this is more of a we're
Negative.
using the software incorrectly more than that. But all right, my rant over of a patch release breaking things. Go ahead.
Well, speaking of 8s, we did get an announcement. PHP 8 has an official release date in December.
Woo!
So that will be exciting. That does include the just-in-time compiler. Whether or not that's going to really mean a whole lot to anybody is still up in the air. But, forward progress. That's the way it goes.
It is. It's good. Good stuff, man. I have an interesting bit of tidbit for listeners of this show. You may have heard me rave in the past of one of our listeners, Syntax Seed. I really had become a fan of their writing. They've been doing a lot of. They were doing a lot of blog posts on that dev website I talked about, and started following her on Twitter and enjoying her posts there. We're interviewing her next week for PHP podcast for the PHP Architect magazine. So a listener of the show is going to be on the PHP Architect podcast, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hadn't even realized when I was scheduling her for that who I was speaking to at the time. And
very flattering.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because I don't associate her real name. I know her by her Twitter handle. And she replied, she goes, "I'm really excited." And she said something like, "I'm a fan of the PHP Ugly podcast." I'm like, that's silly. She's talking about the wrong pod. Wait a minute, what? And then she goes on to explain who she is. I'm like, oh man, that's exciting. I'm excited. So, yep, that's right. You shoot Sherry. So we'll be interviewing Sherry next week for this month's PHP Architect podcast. She has an article in this month's magazine, which I just downloaded today. I need to actually read the magazine before the interview.
Yeah, I have to do that too. Probably be a good idea.
Yeah,
change things up.
I really need to get this month's because they've got a machine learning article that I want to get into.
I saw that was kind of the topic of this month's magazine, machine learning. So I really think machine learning is like a tricky thing in the PHP world. I'm really curious about what the articles are about. So I can't wait to crack the cover of this month's magazine.
Yeah, and Sherry's article is sponsored by DiegoDev, or at least it has the DiegoDev sponsorship on it, and is free to download from the PHP Arch website.
She actually pointed out there's a grammar mistake in that advertisement, which that advertisement has been running ever since that was one of the things that they wanted.
That's why we get no leads from it, huh?
That's it. That's the reason we've gotten no business from that advertisement. I gotta remember to reach out to Editor-in-Chief Oscar about that.
I don't see it. What is it?
It's like it's like the very last sentence. It says the or something like that.
It does.
What does it say?
And the solution's the implement.
Yeah, it should say they implement. Yeah.
They implement.
Yeah.
Well, so you guys don't do copy. You guys do programming. That's fine.
That's right. Yeah. Besides that, what else you got going on, Thomas?
Thinking about trying to learn COBOL.
That's probably a great idea because they are literally begging people, whoever knows COBOL, to come to Jersey and charge whatever you want to do some coding.
Not just Jersey, man. It's all over the place now that people have realized that all of the unemployment systems run on software from the 70s.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? If you don't know what we're talking about, with this coronavirus going on and the sudden surge of unemployment, a lot of these systems, which are very old legacy code from, like Thomas said, the 70s, were written in COBOL, are having trouble managing the load. And these different states and cities are begging for anybody with any COBOL skills at all to volunteer. I don't think they're paying, to be honest. I think they're asking for volunteers to volunteer their time to help fix these systems to manage this influx. This goes to show you. Now, if you were in the finance sector of the world, you know COBOL is still a very big thing there. Like, it's scary how many of our financial systems are dependent on COBOL. And I think this is a perfect example of a gap that's happening that we don't even realize that's going to get catastrophic at some point, where there are becoming fewer and fewer COBOL programmers and fewer people who understand COBOL, and we still have all these mission critical systems that our finance industry are absolutely dependent on that require that language. There has to be something done about this at some point. Either we have to figure out how to migrate off this legacy code, or we have to suck it up and have some incentives for people to learn this ancient language and continue to maintain these systems.
Or get everyone back to work so there's not so much unemployment.
Right? I mean,
this whole paycheck protection program that was supposed to go out to help small businesses is just taking too long, so businesses can't hire their people back and pay them. It's driving me nuts.
We're feeling that.
It's crazy, but this so borders on the edge of political, but it's not, I assure you. I see posts on Facebook where people are saying, well, the hospital where I live, just outside of whatever hotspot, has tons of people sitting around doing nothing. There's empty beds, and there's all this, people are getting laid off because there's not enough traffic at the hospital. The media is making a total hoax out of this thing. And I'm like flashbacks to the Y2K bug, where I'm like, no. Making a big deal out of it is why the hospital beds are empty. That's the point of making the big deal. What we have done is succeed. In Colorado, we took the curve from Monday. We were 1 week out from the peak of the curve, to Tuesday, where the peak of the curve was 2 days behind us already. We had actually flattened the curve so effectively that we were not going to run out of beds or ventilators in Colorado. And to say that this is like some kind of media hoax or that people are blowing it out of proportion is such a ridiculously stupid thing to say, because there are places that don't have beds and don't have ventilators. Just because your town in Texas has open beds does not mean San Francisco's doing great.
Right.
It's so frustrating to see people consider their personal bubble of information as the totality of what's going on. They dug mass graves in New York. Shut up about your stupid conspiracy theories.
They've got refrigerated trucks outside of hospitals to store the bodies in.
Right.
I mean,
and we're still
horrifying.
We're still a week and a half out from the curve nationally. So we're still not at peak usage. We're at standard usage for where we are in the curve. But if the curve doesn't flatten out moving forward in the next week, then we're going to have tragic amounts of people dying. And it's so frustrating seeing people who they claim to be so informed and so politically aware, and then they retweet the stupid comments by people who got laid off from a hospital that doesn't have enough people coming into the ICU.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I feel bad for you if you got laid off, but this is the epidemic. This is the pandemic, is the fact that we have to take care of it one way or another. Either people die or people are unemployed. Right.
And again, I don't want to make this a whole coronavirus show again. We talked a lot about last week, but my wife who's in the health industry, she actually has to go into the hospital. Matter of fact, she's got to go in tomorrow, and it really freaks me out every day she spends in that hospital. but she goes nuts. Like, she was explaining to me, and I'll be honest, it's something I didn't even think about. But she was talking about she's going nuts over the people wearing gloves, wearing surgical gloves. First thing, there was a massive shortage of them, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that people were, walking around, they actually caught people leaving her department trying to steal boxes of their gloves. It's ridiculous. But she's like, I was explaining, I was asking, like, what drives you so crazy about it? She's like, nobody does it right. It's like the fact that you have the gloves on doesn't do anything if you don't use them correctly. She's like, think about a doctor. Everything a doctor touches with those gloves on either gets sanitized or thrown away. She's like, think about you when you wear the gloves to stain. What do you touch? You touch nothing. You touch only stuff that you're okay getting stain on, and then you take them off. She goes, you got people now wearing gloves all day long. They're touching their phones. They're touching their wallet. They're touching their face. Like, they're not transferring the virus that way. The virus is still on the gloves. You can't be touching anything.
Yeah, it's a single-use situation.
Exactly. She goes, and that's the other thing. You get somewhere in your car, you put your gloves on, you get out your car, you get back to your car, you take your gloves off, you get into your car, and the gloves go in the trash. That's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, you're right.
If you order a sandwich from Subway, you'll notice that they make a sandwich, take the gloves off, put on new gloves.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. It's an allergen issue for them, and you have to single use every pair of gloves. As soon as you've done a transaction, gloves off, in the trash, new gloves.
Right. And you can't be touching things between. You can't be touching your phone. You can't be, And she really blew my mind when she said that. I'm like, you're absolutely right. All these people walking around with these gloves on thinking that they're protecting themselves are, probably just as naive as, not wearing gloves at all.
Right, and then half of Facebook ads are for masks now.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That feels yucky, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's opportunistic sales. It's just...
Yeah. What about you, John? I know, John, I tell you what, I think over the last week, John and I have worked harder for less money than we have since starting DiegoDev. We have been churning and burning.
The levels of stress I've felt over the past week or two is just... I just don't know how I'm dealing with it. I go out and I not only the business, but personal things going on as well that I don't want to get into, but it's just been a hell of a week or two.
Yeah.
Between, dealing with the downturn in some things due to the virus and trying to make sure our employees are covered and taken care of, to additional business we've taken on. So we lost a ton of revenue from one client, and we've added in a little bit from a couple other clients, and trying just to manage all of that and keep everything kind of just moving forward it's taking a toll.
Yeah, it's tough. And yeah, it's really been challenging, but we'll get through it. We'll push through. I tell you,
on top of that,
I'm glad I got you, John.
Too.
Huh?
I said on top of that, we have our daily work we have to get done too. We not only do we run the business, but we both still code, which I love doing, and I keep finding myself being distracted from the coding to do something. And last night it was a couple hours going back through years of payment history for one client to prove, no, all of our payments are done in arrears. That's been the biggest thing of our business since we started, is we don't charge our clients up front. We want to prove our value. We work a month, and then you pay us for that month. And because we've been doing this for years, we've gone through different accounting systems, different invoice systems, different banks. And they've gone through multiple accountants. So somewhere along the way, they lost in translation that fact that we pay in arrears. So it came to April 1st. I send the invoice for the end of March, or for March, and this is when they cut the contract in half. so they want to give us half of what they owe us because they're thinking they're paying for April. It's like, no, now I got to figure all this out.
Yeah. And then I think the day before that was one of the days we were on a call at 8:30 at night, wasn't it? It was one day this week we were on a call at like 8:30 at night with a client, and I tell you. But we will get through this. And like I said, I've been doing some coding. I'm real excited. It's funny. I actually one of the client projects I'm working on. I told John this morning. I'm walking the dog, and I messaged him. I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking about this client, and I had a meeting with him yesterday, and I think I want to go ahead and buy another Nova license and install it for their app, because it really seems like the way they're looking to use this, the back end as administrators is a good fit for Nova. I still think that's the case. And man, I tell you what, the amount of progress you make with Nova is so worth it. So I have a developer working on CRUD system for users. So these are non-administrators. This wouldn't be Nova users, right? It's just a CRUD system for a user to create their account, create blah blah blah. And he's been working on it for about 2 days now. It's not super complex. There's just a lot of fields. There's a lot of polymorphic relationships. Attaching stuff. So it's not super complex. It's just a lot of grunt work. And he's worked on it for 2 days now, and I think he was planning on being done today. I pulled in Nova, and I got pretty much the whole admin section done in like 3-4 hours. And I'm like, wow, that just paid for itself right there. Now I will say Nova does not like UUIDs. That was fun to learn. I'm trying to work with our database, and it's just throwing up all sorts of errors. I'm like, God damn it. And so, I'm having to Google. It's like, yeah, no, Nova doesn't do UUIDs. And I'm like, oh. So fortunately, I found some people who had figured out, all you have to do is write a migration to change a couple of tables. And, I was able to do that. So I got it working. It's just one of those things. It's like, man, I can't believe UUIDs are still like not a thing for Nova. It seems like I love UUIDs, but man, it always ends up throwing me that curveball on like packages or whatever I'm trying to use. Nobody ever takes in consideration that my ID might be a UUID. So that's all been fun. I'm enjoying it.
You're gonna need to give me a tour of Nova tomorrow, because I still don't understand what we get out of it.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I still want to show you. I was trying to get John hyped about CouchDB. I set up some syncing between a couple of CouchDB servers, and I'm
hyped about it. I mean, I used it a little bit with you, or not in a production environment, but used it when setting it up a couple years ago, just checking it out, and I know how easy it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be. It's not like I'm not hyped about it.
Just tell them that there's no animal products or byproducts in it.
Don't start. Don't start.
I've been good about not talking about that with Eric for a long time now.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I will say, Matt, my buddy Matt up in Canada turned me on to a new series on Netflix, which you both might appreciate. So I am very cautious about or aware of sustainable food lines. Like I'm a big fan of sustainable food, and he turned me on to a new series on Netflix called Rotten. And I'm like, oh, God bless it. It's like everything you can think of has some sort of corruption around it.
That's why I can't watch any of those documentaries, because all they are is just like, hey, do you like going for a swim? Guess how many children you killed doing it. Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't want to know.
This is very much like that. This is why you should not eat avocados. And then it gets into all this like backstory of all the, killings and everything that happened around the avocado industry. I'm like, that's all right. I don't like avocados anyways. But It's like everything has got like some level of corruption to it. It's but yeah, let's not go down that path.
My understanding, bananas are pretty bad too.
Bananas.
Yeah, they named they named an entire war crime after bananas.
What's that?
Banana republics. Seriously, it's a type of corporate war crime.
Yeah, it just started on Mexican wine. I watched the avocado one, then it was going into Mexican wine.
What could be wrong with that?
But let's move on. Let's try to focus on coding. Yeah. You know, I remember back before I was a Mac person, when I still used IE, all my Mac friends got super excited when Microsoft released Internet Explorer for Mac. And they just went apeshit. And all these developers are like, oh, I can move to the Mac now because there's Internet Explorer and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, they never maintained it. It basically died on the vine and moved on. I'm like, that will never, ever happen again. Well, shows you how much I know. Do you know Microsoft Edge now has an Mac OS version of it?
Yeah, not only that, it's beating Firefox.
It's beating Firefox. Wow.
Yep.
I did not even know Microsoft. I didn't realize they were even on anybody's radar. I didn't even realize people with Windows was using Microsoft Edge. But
well, yeah. Microsoft Edge Windows forces you into Microsoft Edge because ever since they complained that the browser was a core part of the operating system, they've been integrating it more and more and more fundamentally into the operating system.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you open up the control panel, that's a Microsoft Edge window.
Mm.
It's awful.
Yeah, I guess there's a version for Android. There's a version for iOS.
Yeah, because it's built on Chrome. It's easy to port.
That is very interesting. Frank says, I had to install Edge the other day. Frank, why would you have had to install Edge? I am very curious to hear this answer. And please don't tell me it's one of those sites that it's like, oh yeah, you have to have Microsoft Edge to view this site. I don't want to go back to that. I really hope that's not the case. But yeah, I was flabbergasted. I didn't download it and install it. I probably should, but I'm not going to. I'm very happy with my Firefox.
You're still with Firefox, huh?
I am still with Firefox. I don't even really notice it anymore. I have started using that shift again. You might remember that shift where I plug certain apps and stuff in it.
Shift app, I think.
Yeah, I started using that again for all my Gmail stuff because it was just some quirkiness in Firefox I didn't like. So I just kind of do that, but I don't fire up Chrome anymore. Yeah, no, I doesn't even notice anymore. I moved on from Brave. I did like Brave for a while, but again, I'm kind of supporting the message behind Firefox and who they are, and that's really the reason I'm doing it. But yeah, I don't notice it. It works pretty well.
I think I'm just so used to the Chrome inspector, the JavaScript console within Chrome, that every time I try to use it in Firefox, it annoys me.
Yeah, it took a little getting used to.
But
I couldn't even tell you what the difference is now, but I know what you're saying. When I went to Firefox, it was just different enough where it was like, oh, wait a minute, where's this tab? What's this tab? But now thinking about it, I couldn't even tell you what the difference between the two are. But yeah, I get it. And you know what? I try not to be one of those people that like, oh, you shouldn't be using Chrome or you shouldn't use this, shouldn't use that, because next month it's going to be Firefox. You shouldn't use Firefox for some reason. So, I'm not going to care.
I think there's an episode of Rotten about when you use Firefox, it burns down a forest.
Yeah, I'm sure. You know why it's Firefox, right? Because they actually kill real foxes to make it.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, I actually put something on my board. I was hoping that would kind of spark your interest. Did you see that the Register article I put in there about the Boeing
Yes.
787? So there is a I know you don't look at Trello anymore, John, so I'll explain it to you. But
What's Trello?
There is a Boeing 787. I guess the what is it, the FAA? The FAA has ordered that the Boeing 787 must be rebooted every 51 days because they discovered there is a coding bug in it that could potentially lead to like a catastrophic failure of the system. And so every 51 days they have to reboot the entire airplane to avoid this coding issue. How crazy is that?
Not reboot every time they shut it down? I'm confused.
That's how I felt. I'm like, do these things do they never turn off like a commercial airline? Does it, like, some part of it always stay turned on? It might. I don't know.
I thought they were supposed to be like inspected every 30 days.
Well, if they know there's a bug there, fix the damn bug.
Well, okay, so it's not that easy. It's a memory leak.
Yeah? What's not easy about it?
That can be hard to find.
Yeah. Of course, if you're listening to the show, we'll put all these in the show notes. I have been terrible at adding show notes to the podcast, but we have enough articles this week. I'll make sure I add it to the show notes and get it out there to everybody. But
that's because last week it was just all you had to write was coronavirus/COVID-19, and that was the entire show.
Yeah. But it's cool.
Here's a link to cdc.gov, and you're done.
I actually found an article, 10 famous bugs in the computer science world. And there is some pretty funny bugs in here that I'll include this in the let me attach this to Trello now before I forget. There is some pretty awesome bugs in here. First thing, I didn't even realize, do you remember Gangnam Style? That whole Gangnam Style craze?
Wish I didn't, but yeah.
That was actually one of the biggest bugs in history. Apparently, that video, because of how popular it got and how fast it got, it showed that YouTube didn't design their code to handle the 32-bit signed integer. The max value of the 32-bit signed integer is, whatever, and later they had to change their view count so that it was a 64-bit signed integer because Gangnam Style broke YouTube. I'm like, that's crazy. I never even knew about that. Of course, they have some in here that like literally killed people.
Yeah,
which is hard.
They don't have some in here that literally killed people.
Yeah. Yeah, these are some. A lot of these were like, they didn't account for like one of, I forget which one it was, but one of them was they were measuring things in Imperial and in one part of the program, and then they were measuring things in metrics in the other part of the program. Huh?
Didn't that happen on the shuttle?
The shuttle, yeah, that's right. I think that was the one.
Which one?
Let me look through here real fast and see if I can find it. Mars Climate, the Mars Climate Orbiter. The orbiter thruster used imperial units, pounds of force, rather than metric units, newtons, and it conflicted with each other. So that's I guess that is what destroyed that. That was. Let's see, it said the project was designed with the cost of $125 million to study the Martian surface and climate. The communication was cut and the orbiter entered the Mars atmosphere at the wrong angle rather than entering the planet's orbit. So it just basically, disintegrated itself. That was a good call, John.
There's the Theriac 25, which was an X-ray machine that had a race condition in it that killed people.
Oh, I hate hearing about those.
They don't have the most famous one though. That's the thing that gets me is the origin of the term computer bug, which was a punch card that had a dead bug on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess that could have gone on here. That would have been at least an honorable mention for that one. That would have been a good one. I like the PayPal error. I guess PayPal had an error in their code. Again, it was with the whole 64-bit numbering issue. And for a brief amount of time, some guy in Pennsylvania was the richest person in the world with $92 quadrillion in his PayPal account. I'm like, oh, I wanted to be there. I just wanted a screenshot of that. I mean, I would tell PayPal they could have it back. I just want a screenshot of it. So yeah, there's some good stories.
I thought you had a bug in your system. You owe me this money. You can't have it back.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, man, I'm doing some coding, getting in there again. I'm really enjoying it. God, I love coding so much. Love coding.
Did you make any progress on the testing we were talking about, or do we need to jump up together?
Yeah, we need to circle back around that. Matter of fact, our developer wants to actually take part of that as well. We can talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. So I'm trying to talk to Eric so often, and I'm super guilty of this as well. When it comes to writing, especially a new feature or a new project, jumping straight to the database and then trying to get the schema and then figure out how the application is going to work. And I was trying to tell Eric, with this one, let's try test-driven development in a way that we're going to get all of our classes done first to figure out what data we need, how we're going to manipulate it before deciding what the database schema is going to be.
Seems sane.
That'll be fun.
I'm glad you agree with him, because I still struggle with it. Because in my head, I'm thinking, well, if we're going to mock what it's going to be, then how's it going to help us with the database, right? Because you can change your mock as you're building it out. You start to realize, oh, I need this other field, or it shouldn't be in this table, it should be in that table. Or my entities, you start creating your entities to figure out what data they're going to contain, and then you can develop a sane schema from that. And you've done this before.
Yes.
Okay. So, we'll cut that.
He's done a presentation on it.
I'll cut that. I'll cut that. What I thought was a very simple question.
No, it's in my mind. I know that's the way to do it, and I think it comes from I've been writing so many tests lately, writing so much code from those tests, and rewatching things like tomorrow we're having a meeting with a bunch of developers after watching Andy Cassell's Immutability for an Ever-Changing World, rewatching that presentation, and we're gonna have a whole conversation around that. That presentation itself changed a lot of how I code as it stands. And then
I've got to get more disciplined about testing.
Yeah, so you take those principles that he has in there, and you start applying them to your unit test, and then it all starts to work together, and is amazing. Just trust me, it's gonna work well.
I do trust you, and I'm excited to do it, but my need to produce, and I understand all the arguments. Yeah. Especially when it's clients, man. It's like I get so stressed about timelines and deliverables. I'm like, man, they're not gonna care about testing.
So they're yes and no. What I really liked is this client gave us the exact test cases, giving us examples of all this data and how what we think is going to be 3 tables kind of all works together. Taking those use cases and turning them into tests should be super easy. Now it's just figuring out how to make that code behind it give us the results that we were expecting. And I think that's the part I'm super excited about, is we don't always have those test cases up front like we should.
I got a development question for you too. This is something that was brought up. I remember it was a thing back in the 90s, and I actually remember looking into it because the company I was working for at the time was very proprietary in their software solutions, and they were thinking that this is something that they wanted to do. And we ended up, not going in that direction. I've always been pretty thankful that we didn't. But I don't want to say the name of the site, but a friend of mine today sent me a link to a site and asked me my opinion of it. And it was basically one of these services that obfuscates your code. It's designed for PHP. So it doesn't really encrypt it. It just obfuscates it. Am I saying that right? Obfuscates?
Yeah.
Obfuscates.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
Stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the feedback I gave it, well, because the idea is that when he's doing client work, that they don't get the code for free. Like, he'll do the work.
They still get the code. It still runs.
Right, but they can't change it without some work. And the thing I told him is, like, my experience with it, A, you take a performance hit, and B, you lose all ability to do any debugging in production. So
I don't think you take a performance hit, do you? There's no performance hit.
Well, I didn't test. Again, this was 10, 15 years ago, so I haven't tested it recently, but the solution we had tested back then, you did. So maybe not
it's
so much.
It's like Minified JS, right? Is all
No.
it is.
No.
No, it's got to do. I mean, it's a whole translation. It's not minified.
So
What are you talking about?
Here,
I was going to let you go on for a while on this. I used this extensively in the 90s.
Oh, did you? Okay.
It did. I cannot figure out what the name of the package I used was. It wasn't too expensive. There is ZendGuard.
That was the one we had been testing back in. Hey, here's Matt. Encrypt.
Yeah,
hey,
and
Matt.
I think I used something like Blue Orb or something like that. And
Encrypt is different than obfuscated, though.
Yeah, I don't know, Matt. Matt is in our chat, and Matt, are you saying that it was? I don't think it was encrypting. I think it was obfuscating it.
some of them called it compiling. Some of it called it encryption. Some of it called it obfuscating. Obfuscating is the best term because there isn't really a secret key.
Mm-hmm.
It's still actually PHP code that just runs through some sort of proprietary thing, some proprietary module. For example, the ZendGuard one, there's a unguard application you can download that mostly takes it apart. But I used this because I had production machines that went out with proprietary code and were deployed in real, like, fairground environments.
Mm-hmm.
And we were afraid that one of our competitors would grab one of these machines that we were selling and take the code out and steal it.
I mean, that's a good use case for it.
Yeah, and that was it was a serious concern of ours because that the industry was very, very competitive, and we had a product that no one else had, and everyone has it now. But at the time, we were the only company that did this, and so we didn't want our code to get out. We didn't want the algorithm for securing our tickets to get out because that was in it as well.
So John, Matt was mentioning that it was actually encryption. You're saying it is encryption, looking at it?
The one you wrote that you sent me, it's encrypt and decrypt PHP source code. So encryption is different than obfuscation.
Yeah, but the problem with encryption is that if they have total physical access to the source code, they probably have the encryption key as well. So obfuscation actually works better because the time to figure out the obfuscation methodology is much more complicated than the encryption methodology. Because you can run pretty quickly through all the encryption methodologies that are out there.
Right, but the point of this, the one that I'm looking at now, is I can write some software, encrypt it, give it to you with a key that only you can run. And granted, if you let go of the code and the key, there's an issue. But now I can give you a copy with your own key. I can encrypt it again for Eric with his own key. So everyone can. So I know I'm selling the key to specific people. If it gets out in the, I'm sure there's ways to write some sort of contract there where if it gets out in the wild and I find out it was your key, there could be some sort of issue there.
Yeah, it's piracy. It's an anti-piracy measure. It's an ancient problem that has yet to be solved.
So yeah, who's gonna write? Yeah, who's.
I mean, I guess I'm fine sharing it. I mean, it's not as controversial, I guess, as I thought, and I think Thomas brought up some good use case for it. But the site I'm talking about, and again, we'll put this in the show notes. It's called PHP Bolt, phpbolt.com. So yeah, you're right. It does say right on the front page, encrypt and decrypt PHP source code. I forget where I was looking at where I thought it was actually obfuscating it. Oh, that's what I did. If you click on encrypt PHP, it says PHP obfuscate source code for free. So I don't know.
IonCube, that's the one I was using.
Is it?
Yeah. There's stuff like Laravel Shift. There's a Docker container version of Laravel Shift now, and I'm sure it's using some kind of encryption in it. It's...
Yeah, now that you bring that up, Thomas, I could totally see in like putting something together on like a Raspberry Pi in some stand somewhere at a mall to run something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there could be use cases for it.
If you're putting it on there, you have to have the key on there too, so you're not getting anything out of it.
Well, but that's the thing, true. Is that with Laravel Shift, you get a key, and when you use it, it's a one-time use thing. It reports to a server that it got used. So,
yeah, but
this is it's a package for licensing single-use, multi-use packages. It's for ensuring code security. You might be able to run it once with that encryption key, but if you can't run it twice, then that's helpful.
But you only need it once in order to get the code. So,
not really. That can get really tough.
All right, now
decrypt it.
Well, no, because
I want to download and try this because you guys are driving me nuts. I want to see how this actually works now.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that part of what IonCube does is break all your variables up into random Unicode characters and like random stuff that you wouldn't expect to be supported that actually is supported. Mm-hmm. So even if you get the stuff decrypted, if it's been processed through IonCube, it's going to be a big mash of garbled mess. You'd have to refactor the whole thing. Yeah. There are use cases. I've seen a couple of them. PHP is probably not the biggest market for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. But I still think they're confusing obfuscation with encryption. Or I am.
No, I think it's doing both. I think IonCube is doing obfuscation and encryption is being done through something else.
I'm sure only licensed people are using the PHP product. Prevent your PHP product from the nulled world. Okay. I might have to play with this weekend and see.
You've got too much stuff to do. You don't play with this yet.
This weekend, I said. I still have my weekends, man. I can't go out and play baseball, so this is it, man. This is what I do.
Where are you going out and playing baseball? Wait a second.
Oh boy, you guys are killing me. Did you see? I tweeted out a new news feed you guys can check out called Lobsters. Have you? Did you guys notice this, or did you guys see the tweet?
I didn't see the tweet, but I looked it up.
And somebody mentioned, they're like, yeah, I used to be a big fan of Hacker News, and when they were saying that, this was on a podcast, I thought to myself, yeah, Hacker News used to be good, but it's a bunch of garbage now. And then they said the same thing, and they're like, so I've moved over to Lobsters. I'm like, Lobsters? What a weird name for a tech site. But I've been hitting it for the last few days, and I'm pretty happy. It's got some. I mean, it's very Hacker Newish.
Time to do it. That's what I don't understand.
What's that?
So when do you have time to go digging through this?
5 minutes in the morning. You just pop in, you see what's out there, and it doesn't take a lot of time.
It sounds to me like you're paying them too much.
Shh.
Composer.
Thousand directions.
Composer news.
Composer news.
Last Sunday was the 9 years since Composer's first commit, and they've released the 2.0 dev builds. So you can check it out now. And I think the big thing that is in 2.0 is parallel downloading of packages.
I was just thinking the only thing I would wanted to do would be parallel downloading of packages. That's literally the only change I'd want. I don't want anything else in Composer to change. It does what it needs to do. Don't try to do too much more.
I've joined the Windows Insider program.
What does that mean?
That means I get preview builds of Windows every month or so.
To lunch? Oh, okay.
No. I did that because it was announced yesterday, that there's support for the native Linux file system in Windows Explorer now.
Okay.
In Windows
or File Explorer.
What does that do for you?
So previously, when you installed the WSL stuff, the Windows subsystem for Linux, it sort of squirreled away the whole file system into a virtual drive that you could only access within that subsystem. But now, in your File Explorer, you get a Linux tab that lets you browse it as if it were just a regular file system on your computer.
Is it another partition, or is it doing some sort of masking of the existing partition?
It's a virtual partition, I think. I think it's a dynamically scaling virtual partition.
But still, what does that do for you? I'm still lost. What is?
You can browse the Linux files and the Linux root from within Windows.
Oh, from the Explorer.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I see what you're saying. So, like, if you have something in /home/user in the Linux portion, you can now get to it through navigation of the file system. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about because I tried to do that once when I wanted to open up a file I think it was an image file. And I'm like, oh, I need to open this image file. And I was trying to figure out how to get to it from Explorer. And I'm like, where the hell are these files in Explorer? And couldn't find it.
Where the hell do you have a Windows machine?
I have the, I told you this. I got that virtual machine because of the client that I needed the damn RDS, the Windows RDS. We had this conversation like a year ago.
If I remember a year ago clearly, he wasn't all the way tuned into that episode of the podcast.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I still have it. I still have it on my machine. I fire it up about once a month just so it updates because I don't want to get to a point where I need it and have to start it, and then it takes like 3 days to update. It's funny you should mention that because I just happened to do that today. I started it up just so it would update, and then I shut it down again.
Really?
Yeah. It runs pretty good. We've got those external GPUs. We got the external GPUs, and it runs decently. I tried to run OBS on it so that I could I could pipe our OBS through that when the OBS was crashing on Mac, but it wasn't running that good. But it runs decently. I mean, I don't use it more than like 5 minutes, so I'm probably not really giving you an honest opinion. But the little bit I do use it, it seems to be fine. I don't really spend a lot of time in it. Don't miss it.
Hear more about this client that needs this, because I'm confused. I have a client that needs a Windows machine, but I don't have one, so they suffer.
Yeah, I'll refresh your memory. It had to do with the migration at a secure government site of servers.
But you needed a Windows machine for that? I'm sorry.
Yep, it had a they implemented a new cloud solution, and it's all Microsoft, and the only way for a while, because they couldn't figure out their firewalls correctly, the only way I could connect to our Linux machines was to fire up this RDS interface to the virtual environment and then open a terminal window through it. And RDS, the Microsoft RDS client for Mac wasn't compatible with it. It was this long thing. It was a pain in the butt. So yeah, that was my life.
But now you don't need it, but you still update it. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I look like I lost you there, Thomas. Sorry. You're muted, buddy. Still muted.
Still muted.
Everything's working great. What are you talking about?
What do you got here? You got some CAPTCHA? ReCAPTCHA to HCAPTCHA? What's that?
This is interesting. So last week, it wasn't a big story for us, but Cloudflare, which runs the 1.1.1.1 DNS, they released 1.1.1.2, which is an malware blocking DNS server.
Oh, 1.1.1.2?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about a family DNS server, 1.1.1.3, I think, that will allow you to filter which sites the family can and can't see, and you can get reports on your family's usage and things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's cool and all, but not really a relevant story for PHP Ugly usually. But then I saw that they're moving from reCAPTCHA to HCAPTCHA. And reCAPTCHA, everyone knows, is Google's solution for, preventing bots as well as training their machine learning systems. And I guess we don't use it enough for it to be an issue, but they charge for the product now if you're over certain rates, certain usage levels. Mm-hmm. And Cloudflare started getting concerned about privacy and Google sort of randomly being blocked in China and places like that. So they went looking for a solution and settled on HCAPTCHA, which they explain in this sort of lengthy blog post about why, but it basically boils down to, hey, they respect privacy. Their model is selling a product, not gathering data, and their support for Privacy Pass, which is a plugin for Firefox and Chrome, which allows you to sort of permanently authenticate as a real person. And they just had a lot of stuff here, but I'm like, it got me thinking, like, is Cloudflare becoming the good guy?
I am a fan of Cloudflare. I mean, they seem to go. So Cloudflare, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the one where something was happening with neo-Nazis and on the internet, and Cloudflare started shutting them down. That's the one. And then the CEO said, "I should not have this power." And
yes,
Yeah, I got respect for them. They seem to do a lot for. I mean, they seem to be legit about privacy. So
Yeah, and
is this a new service they're offering though? I'm not completely clear.
well, so Cloudflare's main product, I think, is flood protection,
Mm-hmm.
DDoS protection and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that they use reCAPTCHA as part of that package. They don't have their own reCAPTCHA system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's just a switch over for them on the products that they've already got deployed out.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a lot of products. That's the thing.
Yeah. So what is HCAPTCHA then? I don't understand.
It's a functional bot detection system that replaces reCAPTCHA and has better scruples as far as privacy goes.
But it's something you can implement today. It's
a paid product.
There's a whole site on it now. Yeah, I'm catching up here. I really should check this.
It's free to use for publishers of any size.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was this. Yeah. Yeah, this is cool. I'm gonna have to look into this. This is pretty cool.
If you want the enterprise solution, it's going to cost money.
Yeah. They have an enterprise level that lets you control a lot of different stuff. Hey, look at that. Enterprise service level agreements is part of their enterprise package.
An SLA?
That's crazy
really?
talk. Stop it.
That doesn't seem like an enterprise thing.
Don't start.
I don't have the energy to start. Don't worry.
We were saying nice things earlier about Laravel, so let's just keep it there. All right. I don't know. It's getting late.
We're still using simple CAPTCHA in my stuff. It's funny.
Yeah.
We're using reCAPTCHA v3, the invisible one.
Listen,
I did in my previous life.
Giving me all sorts of homework, man. Now I got to look at HCAPTCHA this weekend. I got to look at PHP Bolt this weekend. I got more CouchDB stuff to do this weekend. I got to
focus
stop
on
talking
that.
to you guys.
Focus on the CouchDB.
CouchDB rocks, man. I tell you what, every time I start to play with CouchDB, I'm like, this is fun. Like, this is so useful. I need to use this more frequently, and then I don't. But I think with the new,
I tried talking him out of it and going to Firebase or AWS's DynamoDB or whatever, and he's like, "Nope, we're sticking with Couch." I'm like, "Okay."
I think with the new
see.
Coupled with the new Laravel HTTP client, that's the key. I don't have to do the whole guzzle thing anymore. I can just do HTTP get, HTTP put, HTTP delete.
Guzzle's not that hard.
Well, it's even easier now. Even easier.
It's not that hard, but it's what, PSR5, where it's got that weird format to like support multiple events resulting from execution. I don't like the new Guzzle.
And if you guys remember, a couple weeks ago, I did Caporizio's little trick with Sushi, and I was actually reading from a CouchDB database through a model. It was fantastic. I was in heaven.
Now, whose database that was, no one knows, but
it was doesn't matter. It was a CouchDB database, and I was bringing it into an eloquent model. It was perfect. It was perfect. It was a perfect model.
Now, one of these days there's going to be a big vulnerability, and they're going to call it couch surfing.
I know.
And because of that alone, it'll be big news.
I gotta be honest with you, Thomas. I liked recording earlier in the day. It was more fun. It was more light, and I wasn't as tired.
If I could have chosen to do that today instead of what I was doing, I 100% would be on board.
Oh, yes, the self-quarantine will be over before you know it.
Yeah, but then
no.
the school year's over. The teenagers are still there.
I got a perfect hack for you, though. Check it out. You know how everybody's wearing masks, which, it's like questionable if it helps or not helps, but, it's wearing the mask and the social distancing. I got a hack for you. I walk my dog every morning, right? Dressed like a Mormon. You dress like a Mormon, you put on a white shirt, a tie, and a name badge. People just stay 6 feet away from you. You can just, walk wherever you want, and people just avoid you. It's the easiest.
Well, especially a Mormon of your size. It's an unusual sight.
It's been working well for me. I don't have to wear a mask or anything. I just walk wherever I want, and nobody will approach me. I'm sorry to all our Mormon listeners out there. I do love you guys.
No, they don't use electricity. They don't hear us.
That's the wrong. That's Amish.
Is the show over? I think that's the end of the show.
I think that has to be the end of it.
Considering one of our biggest clients is run by Mormons, I don't think that's
kicked
really
off the air. Thanks to our Patreons, I have been trying to log on to Patreon for the last 2 weeks to see who's on the list, and Patreon has completely locked me out. I tried proxies, I tried different browsers. I cannot log into Patreon. I don't know why it is, but
how are you locked up, but I'm not?
And I guess John is neither. I don't know. It doesn't. Like I said, I tried my proxy servers. Everything I do, it seems to know who I am and not let me in. Maybe I'm using an old password. Anyways, thanks to
password. What are you talking about? It's in one password. What are you talking about?
I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I have a pretty good idea how to do this shit, and I can't log into that damn site. And it keeps telling me it's sending me an email. It never does. Although when I open up a support ticket, it sends me an email. You guys probably had seen that. And it sends me an email, no problem. But
you sure you're even logging into the right account?
Yeah. Yeah, positive. I know what I'm doing, man. I'm the one that created the account and put it in one password, so I know if John's logging in, I should be logging in. That's the biggest frustration for me. And I can't figure out how it knows who I am. Because like I said, I keep bouncing my proxy servers around and it still figures it out. Drives me nuts. Alright, that's it. We're done. I'm not complaining anymore. We had a great show. We talked about a lot of code. We did some social hack in there and this and that. Talked about coronavirus. Turned you guys on to some new sites. I got some homework to do this weekend. This is why I appreciate talking to you guys. But we're done. I got to go to bed. I got a CPAP machine to put on. Huh?
How's the CPAP machine treating you?
It reports me every time I don't sleep long enough with it on. It's frustrating. I have to sleep 6 hours a night, or it gives me. I get a grade now when I sleep, and I know not everybody can see. Like if you're listening to the audio version, you're not going to have any idea what I'm doing. But I'm showing the team that I get a grade when. Where's the camera? Can you see that? Trying to get the glare for you. Anyways, I get a grade every night I sleep, and it's based on how long I sleep, how many incidents I have, and how much leakage I have through my mask. And all right, I don't want to get deep in this, but my whole sleep insomnia issue, it wasn't sleep insomnia, but my lack of sleep deprivation had really gotten to be a bad thing and put me in a really bad bad place. And we actually had to cancel a show because I had gotten so sick off of it and this and that and the other thing. I got the CPAP machine just in time, but before I got the CPAP machine, and I already shared with you guys, all the numbers and stuff and how crazy it was. And when I went to pick up the CPAP machine, that was the first time they saw the numbers. They flipped out. They're like, Mr. Johnson, you don't understand. You may die any day now. You have got to start using this. So I did. I've been using it ever since.
So you don't have to hard sell it. I already bought the thing. I
actually reached out to John. So my sleep pattern had reduced down to 1 to 2 hours at a time. And then that's all I could sleep for. It was like an hour or two. I would be up for about an hour. I'd fall back to sleep for about an hour. That was my life for probably about the last year or two. No, probably for like the last 6 months. For the last year, I've been sleeping for about 3 hours a night. But it was getting progressively worse. I shared with John, I forget what day it was. I think it was just over the weekend. For the first time in, I couldn't tell you how long, I had slept for like 9 straight hours. That was me in bed, asleep with this mask on for 9 hours. I have not done that. I couldn't even tell you the last time I've done that. So it is definitely helping. I am more awake and alert throughout the day. Going to bed for me, I still have anxiety because it is a process. You got to put the mask on. And then I have this paranoia in the back of my head that it's going to try to kill me one night and just cut off my oxygen. Because I had a problem. Like the first night I had it, and I was trying to sleep in bed where I was laying straight down, they had turned it up so high because my condition was so bad that it was just pumping air into me, and I couldn't exhale. And it was the weirdest sensation. It freaked me the hell out. So I still have anxiety over it. But all in all, it's helping. I'm sleeping at least 4 hours a night, typically 6 hours. And like I said, the one night, the 9 hours. So,
and you feel better?
I do feel better. I'm not sick anymore. I'm not groggy anymore. I feel more alert. I feel rested.
Yelling at clients as often.
Wow.
This is
that
true.
Could be other things.
All right, that's it though. All right, I'm off on tangent. We've gone on way too long. This has been episode 185.
We didn't talk about this thing.
Your little you're just mainlining alcohol now.
Yeah, I got a beer tap in my office now. I can just go pour myself a beer anytime.
You poured a couple during the show. I was actually very envious when I saw you pop up and grab yourself another beer. That was.
You can see my jammy pants?
I did.
Yes.
Do you have any control over the beer you get?
You do. Yes. I'm frustrated because I didn't take enough time to look at it when I ordered the first round. I ordered packages versus individual beers, so it was packs of 4, and I've gotten a couple that I'll probably drink because I have them now. But I'm not a pale ale guy. I'm not a lager guy. So
you only had a friend who was a pale ale guy that you could have over and invite. I don't know.
I'm can't have anyone over. Jesus. How quickly he forgets.
I'll send you my referral code, Eric. You can get your own tap, and then I'll ship you my mini kegs. Here's the other thing. They call them mini kegs. I'm expecting these metal kegs, and they're like just plastic bottles of beer.
Yeah. And what do? You just like screw it in or something? Or how's the tap work? Like what's causing the pressure?
So you put the keg in. It's just the little hose that comes out of it. You snap it in, and then just when you pull it down, it does its thing.
Here's the thing, though. You used it earlier before we started the podcast. Can you go over there and just pour yourself like a little shot of beer without muting yourself?
Yes.
So this is where it becomes a problem for me.
I love the jammies. There it is.
That sound you're hearing is the other side of the room, not an air conditioner in an old motel kicking in.
It's 4 feet away from me.
It is way like over there. It's so
other
small.
Side of the room.
That is at least a tenth of a football field away from him. And my issue with that is if my wife is sleeping on the couch and I go to grab another beer, and it sounds like we're in a no-tell motel.
Don't put it in your bedroom or your living room.
The two places that I am. My kitchen it's a single unit. There's nowhere for me to put it. I'd have to put it in the garage.
There you go. That's actually where I was thinking about putting mine.
That thing would wake up neighbors.
It is loud.
You can't have it. You can't have it by heat. Is one of the things.
Oh, yeah, that would be a problem for my garage. My garage gets hot as hell. Is there any app on your phone to like tell you how much you have left or anything? No.
No.
No, it just sprays foam everywhere.
There's no tech. There's no tech angle to this at all.
Not at all.
Damn it!
I think we've learned from the Juicero that that's a bad idea.
Guys, we gotta go. We're running way too long. We're running way too long. I gotta go. I'm hanging up with you guys.
You brought it up. You brought
didn't.
the beer thing up. Yeah, you
John,
did.
I did.
John brought it up. Stop blaming me for shit. Damn it!
I happened to look in on his screen. I saw it sitting there behind me. I was like, "Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that thing."
I love how little alcohol you drink, yet visible from your camera, you can see a mini kegerator, a cask of whiskey, and a bottle of wine. I'm sorry, 2 bottles of wine. I can tell that blue one is the DiegoDev bottle of wine.
Wow. That's and he's furry. He's pretty blurry there. You need to work on your internet connection. All right, that's it. I'm cutting you guys off. We're done. Episode 185 is in the can. I am Eric.
I'm Tom.
I'm John. Keep it
ugly.
You guys are way better at that than I am.
No, that was perfect. You guys, I'm stopping local recording.
Yourself off of? Do you time yourself off of Eric?
I don't time myself off of anybody because you guys never do it at the right time.
Yeah, you guys.
I always time myself off Eric, and it seems perfect.
You time yourself off of him. He doesn't do anything.
I run the show, man.
You do.
There we go. Please don't close your browser for a second. Oh, it says it's all done.
It was a one-time mistake. You don't have to tell me.
It was an amazing mistake, though.
I feel like I do have to tell you. You know,
Stop your locals.
You had me looking at something online. So.
For whatever reason, so we were just talking about how I don't use Chrome anymore. I actually used Chrome tonight because every time I tried using Zencaster the last 3 or 4 times between this show and our other show, my thanks Geishu. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
My mic, I go completely robot. Like I might say 2 or 3 words and then it's complete robot for the rest of the stream. I've been having to use my local stream when editing our stuff together.
Well, I just noticed I have something. I don't know if it's a connection issue, but when I stopped my recording in Audio Hijack, I had like 5 windows up saying that the Yeti mic wasn't available. So it's like a quick blip where it's not there and then it's back.
Interesting.
Replace your USB cable.
Yeah, I noticed my little mini Yeti is freaking out on me. The connection's gotten messed up. Hey, Thomas, why don't you come out to San Diego when the quarantine's over and help us close our office?
Close your office?
Yeah, man. We're gonna move out, and we haven't even been able to use the office the last month.
That sucks.
Big time sucks, man. I actually love that office, but it's an expense we don't need. I mean, I negotiated such a great lease for us. It was kind of silly for us not to take it, but I know they're going to try to jack up the cost like majorly for the renewal. So
I don't know. I mean, after this whole COVID situation, there's a lot of people going under.
That's true.
That's true. Well, it was more that we had at the time we had savings, so we were able to say, "Hey, will you lower the rate if we can pay 18 months up front?" And they're like, "Sure."
Yeah, he's like, why would you guys?
My
want
mom
to do
is
that?
bugging me to come out there, and she's going to pay for it. So after this is all over, I'll definitely be out there. Probably after summer.
Cool, man. Cool. Definitely hang out and do something. I tell you, it's not San Diego anymore. It's the weirdest thing. It like rains all the time here. It like rains every month. It's crazy. I've never seen so much rain out here than we've had this year. For sure, this year. Probably for the entire year, like from April of last year.
Yeah, I've got a tiny leak in my roof that's driving me nuts because I got up there and I put a bunch of roof caulk around where I think it's at, and it's still leaking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That is
But
such a
it's a
pain.
little leak. It's nothing major, but
Yeah.
it's enough.
I was fortunate because about 2 years ago, or whatever it was now. Actually, it's a little longer than that. I got the solar put in, got my roof redone. But before I had done that, I had leaks all over my roof. I couldn't imagine this last year if I hadn't repaired my roof. It would have been a nightmare. I hate owning a house. I mean, I like it from certain aspects, but I hate every time something breaks. You're out a couple grand. Like every fucking thing. Everything costs money. It drives me nuts.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really glad I'm a renter.
Yeah.
And I'm even a good renter. Like, our fridge is, like, so much stuff around the house is busted, and we just live with it. We don't even bother our landlord. We still live?
Yeah, you want to kill it?
Oh, I was just wondering.
Hey, thanks everybody. Appreciate you listening. See you next week.
Thank you, everybody.